Week 14 is here, and the college football chaos is only getting hotter. Rivalries, top 25 matchups, and must-win games are all on the slate this Friday, and we're breaking down every key matchup, picking apart the stats, trends, spreads, totals, and giving you the best bets to dominate your week. From Mississippi State's struggles to Indiana's late-season dominance, we've got the full blueprint for all the winners, cover picks, and high-value totals. Stay tuned because this week, every point matters, and missing a single pick could cost you. Let's start with Mississippi State taking on number 6 Ole Miss on Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Rivalry game or not, momentum matters, and Mississippi State simply hasn't had any for weeks. Their defense has collapsed at the worst possible time, giving up 35 or more points in 4 straight games, and that kind of trend doesn't magically correct itself in 1 week. They're coming off a 22-point loss to Missouri, a game that exposed the same issues they've had all year: blown coverages, poor tackling angles, and too many explosive plays allowed. Ole Miss, meanwhile, is still dealing with all kinds of speculation surrounding Lane Kiffin and whether the program is fully locked in, but when the talent and execution gap is this wide, focus becomes less of a deciding factor. Ole Miss simply has too many weapons and too much offensive rhythm for Mississippi State to keep pace. Even with the rivalry atmosphere throwing some chaos into the mix, Ole Miss should control the game and ultimately pull away with a 34-24 win, covering the -7.5 while staying under the total. Kansas vs. No. 14 Utah, also Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, is a matchup built entirely around one clear imbalance. Kansas cannot stop the run, and Utah is built around one of the strongest rushing identities in the country. Kansas has been inconsistent defensively all season, and every time they face a team that can impose its will on the ground, the game slips away from them. Utah is coming off an uncharacteristic defensive performance where they allowed nearly 500 rushing yards to Kansas State, but expecting Kansas to duplicate that is unrealistic. Kansas doesn't have that same dominant ground approach, nor the physicality up front to stress Utah's front seven the same way. And when a team like Utah gets embarrassed on one side of the ball, they almost always respond sharply the following week. Utah should get back to controlling the line of scrimmage, dictating tempo, and leaning on a rushing attack that Kansas simply isn't built to withstand for 4 quarters. Utah handles this one comfortably with a 38-17 win, covering -13.5 and landing on the under. At 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, we get No. 23 Georgia Tech against No. 4 Georgia, and this matchup looks far more lopsided now than it did when Georgia Tech was sitting at 9-1. They were one of the most misleading 9-win teams in recent memory, benefiting from a soft schedule and a defense that looked more vulnerable the deeper you dug into the film. Georgia, on the other hand, is peaking at the perfect time. Haynes King has taken a beating all season, and now he has to face a Georgia defensive front that is firing on all cylinders. Georgia has shown over the last several weeks that when they get rolling, they completely suffocate teams with aggressive pressure, tight coverage, and the ability to capitalize on mistakes. This looks like one of those games where Georgia jumps out early and never lets Georgia Tech settle into any rhythm. With Georgia finding their stride and Georgia Tech fading, this plays out as a decisive 42-17 win for Georgia, covering the -13.5 and finishing under the total. Next up is North Texas against Temple on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Few teams in the country have been as consistently explosive offensively as North Texas, who has spent week after week putting up 40 to 50 points with one of the fastest-paced scoring identities in the nation. Temple, working through year 1 under Casey Keeler, has shown flashes and has moments where you can see the foundation building, but they aren't ready to go score for score with a team like North Texas. The difference in firepower is too large, and Temple's defense isn't prepared to deal with the tempo and spacing North Texas thrives on. Even if Temple finds some early success, the game becomes overwhelming once North Texas hits their mid-game scoring burst. This has all the makings of a runaway, and North Texas rolls to a 54-21 victory, covering the minus 19.5 and sending the game over the total. Purdue faces number 2 Indiana on Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and this one feels incredibly straightforward. Purdue has struggled all season, and Indiana is coming off a stretch where they played several consecutive games without a bye week, which led to some fatigue and inconsistent performances against Wisconsin and Penn State. Now that Indiana finally gets rest, they should return to playing at the level that made them a top-tier contender for most of the year. Indiana is typically sharp coming out of bye weeks, and Purdue simply doesn't have the roster strength or execution level to hang around for long in this matchup. Indiana's offense should move the ball at will, and defensively, they have every advantage imaginable. This is the classic late-season beatdown Indiana tends to deliver to lower-tier opponents, and they should cruise to a 52-7 win, covering the minus 28.5 and pushing the total over. No. 16 Texas versus No. 3 Texas A&M, Friday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, is one of the most intriguing matchups of the week because the strengths and weaknesses of these teams collide in fascinating ways. Texas has been strong defensively up front, generating disruption and handling the run well, but their secondary has been exposed multiple times this season. Arkansas exploited them, and several earlier opponents exposed similar vulnerabilities. That's a major problem against Texas A&M, who possesses one of the most explosive passing attacks in the country. A&M can score fast, and when they get into rhythm, they force opposing defenses into uncomfortable positions. Even if Texas moves the ball and puts up points, A&M's ability to generate quick strikes changes the entire flow of the game. Add in the fact that A&M's defensive front can create havoc and potentially generate turnovers, and it gives them enough defensive upside to complement their offensive explosiveness. Critics argue that A&M hasn't faced true top-level SEC competition, and that's true, but the talent on offense is undeniable. This is their first true test, but their firepower should be enough to carry them through in a 35-24 win, covering minus 2.5 and going over the total. If you loved this Week 14 breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe to Beyond the Box Score, and hit the bell so you never miss a high-value college football pick. Drop your own predictions in the comments below. I want to see if you're riding with the favorites or spotting the upset this week. And remember, we're here every week with full analysis, sharp trends, and betting insights to help you cash smarter and watch the games like a pro.